Okay, folks, so the last piece of this that we want to add in, of course, is our regular expressions. And so regular expressions, as with CSVs, are going to be, they're in a recipe book that is not in our regular Python kind of lookup. And it's sort of in its regular library. So we have to tell it to import the library or the cookbook of regular expressions. And for that, it happens to be import RE. We also need to define our regular expression. So I'm going to use the one that I used in class as an example. I'm going to apply it to the end station name rather than the start station name, because obviously for me the start station name is always the same, as it will be for you all. So to do this, I'm going to say I'm going to give my regular expression a name. So I'm going to call it regex CPW. Okay, and this is just the RE compile. You can think of the RE compile and the double quotes, all of them as like the forward slashes. So basically, what I'm saying to Python is, process this regular expression. Here's my regular expression. And so I'm going to do the dot asterisk Central Park West dot asterisk, just as we did before. So you can see that other than the stuff that surrounds it, actually the regular expression itself is identical to the one that I used in OpenRefine. So again, there will be quirks among languages about how exactly they implement different features of regular expressions, but they all have them. All of them can do basically the same things, and in this case, they're actually the same. So now that I have my regular expression, the question is, where do I apply this, right? So obviously where I want to be looking for this is at the point that I am looping through. So here again is where I'm testing for my start station ID. That's fine. I'm creating my row array. That's also good. And then I'm saying, okay, for column header and city bike reader field name. So go through each column header in the file. And what I want to do now is I want to, before I go appending things, right, I'm going to do an additional test. And I'm going to say, test the end station name for Central Park West. So the first step in that is going to be to say in order to make sure I'm applying it, first I have to make sure that I'm applying it to the right column. So I have to say, okay, look, if I'm in the column that's end station name, so I would say if call header equals end station name, right? That's how I know I'm in the correct column. And then I'm going to say, okay, now this happens a little bit in reverse. This actually happens in reverse of the way that we sort of organizationally, the way that it was laid out in OpenRefine. In this case, what I actually do is I hand it the name of my regular expression and I say match, right? So if the regex CPW matches something that is in the value of, right? I could say call header, I could say end station name specifically here, right? Because that's the one that I'm looking at. So I'm saying, look, if that matches, in this case, I'm just going to put a print statement for now. Oops, I have to say, if it matches, right? Then what do? I'm going to say, hey, just print that value, right? So for now, I just want to check that it's working correctly. Always a good thing to do in advance. I know it takes about 30 or 35 seconds to run my program. It's not too long. And then all of the rest of this I have left the same, right? So it's still going to do the appending as it did previously. It's still going to capture those rows. It's still going to write the rows to the output file. So I'm not changing my output file at any point at all yet, right? All I'm doing is just checking and seeing, is my regular expression capturing the things that I think it should capture? And so to do this, again, I'm going to run my Python script, and I'm going to be hopeful that, so again, that print statement is what's driving the output here. So it looks like I've captured one already, 106 in Central Park West and West 68. So it looks pretty good. I'm going to wait for this to finish. And then I have to make a decision about how I'm going to organize my file. So when we've been doing this in OpenRefine, what we have done is we have added a new column immediately after the column that we're testing. That's where we've added it. we could also add something to the end. The issue is that we have to, we're going to have to modify our approach a little bit because as it stands, so this seems to be working fine, as it stands, we are relying on the original headers, right? But if I just add a new value into my data rows, right, that's true or false, right, that I need a header there. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to actually, in advance, I'm going to say, okay, these are the field names that you should be using. So where am I going to take these from? I can actually just have these as a written out list. And I'm just going to take these from one of my existing output files. So here I'm going to go open up, I'm going to open up this one. I'm just going to open it with text edit because I want to be quick about it, right? And you'll see that here I have, here are all of my, that's my header row, right? I can just copy this out, right? And instead of saying write these field names, I am going to pass it a list that is all of my field names. Now this is a bit of a pain because I have to put them here. It might actually be easier if you're on a Mac. I can usually, yep, there it is. I can usually actually use my mouse to actually copy these, to copy things out of the terminal. It's a really nice thing. So what I did there is I just highlighted and I did an Apple C. So rather than forcing myself to put all of those quotation marks around them, I'm going to do this. Something looks a little wrong here because I've lost, there we go. So somehow, oh, so there was a carriage return. That's interesting. So it added a carriage return there. So the reason why I thought something looked wonky there is because the first row, the strings were green, and the second row they weren't, which made me think that it was broken somewhere, which is exactly what happened. Now, you'll also notice here that these are in single quotation marks, not double quotation marks. Actually, we can indicate strings with either, but we must be consistent. I prefer double quotation marks. I just think they're clearer. We more often have apostrophes inside a string than we have double quotation marks inside a string, so I think it's easier. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to scan through start station, right, and I'm going to find end station name, and I'm going to add a new header, and it's going to be, guess what, as CPW, right? You remember this from before. So now, the other trick is that I am not just going through, oh, sorry, yes. So I'm going to write, so what I've done is I've changed what I'm writing to my output file to my modified list of headers, right? And so what that means is that while I am going to continue looping through those the original field names, right? Because the has CPW isn't in my original data file. When I look at my original data file, I'm still, which is what I'm doing here, city by greeter, I'm still looking at the original field names. But every time I go through here, I'm going to say, look, if it's end station name, you know, check and see if it matches. And now, so this is what happens if it does match, okay? So if it matches, what I'm going to say is I'm going to say row array append, right? So I'm going to add a value. And in this case, if it matched, I'm going to say true. Else, otherwise, I'm going to say, append false. Okay, so this is a new addition, right? Having the if seemed pretty straightforward. If this thing is true, do whatever's below it. Else is the other half of that statement, right? If it's true, do this. If it's not, do this other thing, right? So previously, we haven't been worrying about what happens if it doesn't match. We've just been sort of ignoring it. But in this case, we want to give a value. You know, we want to have true or false. We want to have a value in that column, no matter what the result of the regular expression is. So if it's true, we write true. If it's false, we write false. And then we just keep going, right, with what we were doing ahead of time previously, because we still want to capture all of the original data. So again, if this worked correctly, what I should find in my new data file is I should find an additional header, which is the has CPW, and I should find true and false in ideally the correct rows. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to cross my fingers and scroll back down here. And again, I've done a little test on my regular expression to see if it works properly. I could also have done this on a subset of the data in OpenRefine, which would probably be easier than messing with it here in Python. Because remember, I am actually, every time I run this program, I am processing all 1.5 million rows. It's a lot faster than it is to process that many rows in OpenRefine. But, you know, I'm still going through every single one of them and first checking to see if it matches my start station ID, and now by applying this regular expression. So here we go. Oops. So I seem to have introduced an error. But here, so here's a trick for reading errors. So it's complaining about something that happened in row 30, and it's saying there's something wrong with row in City Bike Reader, but I didn't actually change this line. What I did do though is I changed this one. And if you see here, when I was overwriting, I was adding my new file, my new column headers. See how it has this round parentheses that's saying do right row, right? Perform the recipe right row, and here's the stuff to do it with. And I didn't close it. See how it doesn't have a round parenthesis at the end? So error reporting, not always super accurate in programming languages. So it didn't realize that something was wrong until the next line of code. And it's sort of up to me to kind of try to figure out what's going on. It's still nearby, so it's not, you know, at the end of the program or whatever, but still a little tricky sometimes. So better, didn't get a syntax error, right? So syntax is like a grammar error where it says, I don't know what you're talking about. That's different from a logic error where it basically says, you know, I can process this thing, but it's doing not what I as the programmer want it to do. So let's give this a chance to run, and we are going to hope that at the end of it, I'm going to have a new data file that has my regular expressioned column added. So again, this is just to demonstrate that, you know, all of the things that we've been doing in something like OpenRefine we can do on much larger data sets much faster with something like Python. Again, I still recommend that you start with OpenRefine for testing purposes and then worry about applying it to large volumes of data. But let's take a look and see how we did here. So here's my folder. I'm going to open this up in Excel. Will we open that file? That's fine. And here we go. So I'm not sure why it chose to default to this row, but if I look, aha. So I did it in maybe not the right spot. Yes. So I've reversed here where I put it, right? So you can see the results of my regular expression turned up under end station row. Rather than has CPW. So I do have a little bit of an ordering problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first append the values, right? And then I'm going to say, oh, by the way, so I'm going to say append the value, and then by the way, if the one that I happen to be on is end station name, right, go ahead and apply the regex and then add that, that additional value. So let's give this a shot. See how we do. Yeah, it really would be great if there was background music. I would appreciate that. Also because that way if you were walking around your office or house, it would actually, when the music stopped, or it could ding at the end, then you would know when your script was finished running, which sometimes as they get bigger, is kind of an important thing to know. You can spend a lot of time testing these things out. It would be nice if it were more efficient. Okay, so let's see how we did. I'm going to open this up. And looks like we're all good. Okay, so hopefully this was a useful demonstration of how we can apply our Python skills to our previous tasks. And we'll talk about this more in class.